Mr. President.
The senator from Maine.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak as if of morning business for 5 minutes.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. President, last March, this body passed CARA, the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. Unfortunately, at the same time, we didn't fund it. We didn't provide any additional funds to support the treatment and recovery of people throughout the country. Since we passed that bill and failed to fund it, 15,000 people have died. 78 a day, 3 an hour have died because we haven't acted on funding. A group of us got together and on March 2nd brought forth an amendment to provide $600 million of emergency funding to give some substance to this bill, which had so much promise, and to provide support for recovery and treatment. That amendment was defeated. Passing that bill without funding is like sending the fire department to a 5-alarm fire with no water. We don't have the means to do what has to be done to defeat this scourge, which has taken the life of a constituent or more in every state in the Union. Every one of us has lost lives in our state because of this. Treatment works. Recovery is possible. It's hard, but the greatest tragedy is when someone struggles with this awful disease, is ready to seek help, seeks help, and is told, sorry, there's a 3-month waiting list. That's unconscionable. This is something that is taking lives right now. This isn't an abstract, maybe this will happen in the future. This is right now, today. In Maine, in Florida, in California, in Arizona, in Washington, in Nebraska, in Texas, all across this country. It is the greatest public health crisis of my lifetime. 78 people a day are dying, and it's preventable. There are 3 legs to the stool of dealing with this. One is law enforcement, one is prevention, and one is treatment. And without all 3 of those legs, the stool collapses and people die. These are real people. I've had roundtables in Maine, sat next to a deputy sheriff who lost his daughter, one woman who said she hoped her son would be arrested so maybe then he could get into treatment. These are regular, ordinary Americans that are being affected by this, not only young people, older people, middle class, middle-aged people. This is a major crisis. And there are lots of aspects to it, and I can talk about the fact that opioid prescription drugs lead to heroin and other drugs. But the real subject today is funding, and now I was told back in the spring, don't worry, we're going to take care of this in appropriations. We're going to have appropriations bills, and it'll all be dealt with. Well, now we're talking about a continuing resolution, which would not have any additional funding unless we find a way to do it, and that's my plea today. And I've written to the President, I've written to the Chair of the Appropriations Committee saying, let's find a way to at least fund the $181 million that's authorized in CARA. At least do that, even if we're doing a continuing resolution. And by the way, I don't understand why we're doing continuing resolutions when the agreement has been reached on the amount of the budget, the amount of the Appropriations Committee has done their work. Why aren't we doing appropriations? That's another subject. But however we do the funding this fall, let's deal with this terrible problem that is taking lives, tearing families apart, and deeply wounding the heart of America. Mr. President, I ask the consideration of this whole body for this urgent problem, and that we take real steps to deliver help to those people that are asking for it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.